we've created a product which is called lease to own. What we're doing is we're flipping them out. You don't have to upfront give any cash. You subscribe to the car for, let's say, a period of 3 years or 5 years, pre-agreed with us. And then at the end of that period, if you're still emotionally attached to that car, you have the option of buying the car. So you don't outlay that cash upfront, but you outlay that cash only at the end of the journey. And at the end of that journey, in 3 years or 5 years time, like things are evolving really fast these days. So if your choice changes at that point in time, you're free to walk away.
One day I was on the train in Australia. I just observed things and I saw someone just going, but I wanted to observe him closely. In my mind, my creative mind said, what makes him stop? Because he was doing this, but then sometimes he stops on one video. So then I'm looking, and then that's what attention is. How can we make our product where they stop on us?
Somebody who knows money also, who can spend the money in the right way to get the right results. I think that's something which most CMOs forget. They think it's all about ideas, creativity, execution. But at the end of it, you've taken somebody's X dollar or whatever, you've got to give 5X in return or 3X in return. I think, and that mindset is very important to be a CMO. Hello everyone, how are you guys doing? Welcome back to All Things Marketing with Sugira and Meraj. Meraj is me, Sugira is there, the other person on the right hand side of the screen. And we have a very special guest today who is in the middle of the screen. Quickly about me, I am a marketing and brand consultant. I've been working for the last 20 plus years. I operate out of Dubai, India, Africa, and Sugira operates out of another part of the world. I have worked on brands like Unilever, corporate houses, Reliance, DIFC, and this is something that we have started full passion, full interest in marketing to hear about the problems of marketing and then trying to solve them online, offline, whichever way it works. So that's about me and that's about the show. Quickly over to Sugira and then our special guest, which we will try and introduce and do justice to his high quality credentials.
Yes, guys, we like to say marketing is life. Everything around you is influenced by marketing. Marketing is life. It literally is. Every decision you guys make in life is around marketing, right? So we have a very special guest here who's been on the podcast before. We have Uzair Moosa, who's the CEO of Swapp. Now, he has been someone who's been passionate about scaling and transforming businesses, growth, turnaround, and strategy. We're going to learn about Swapp and how marketing plays an impact in everything. How when you are in Dubai, when you think of a car, marketing means I think of Swapp, right? So Uzair is someone who's been a transformational executive with a track record of turning loss-making businesses into profitable, high-growth ventures across IT, aviation, mobility, fintech, and sustainability. He's been experienced in scaling operations, driving revenue growth, and building high-performance team in fast-paced competitive markets. He's been recognized for launching Careem in Saudi Arabia, now growing Swapp, which is the spotlight here. We're going to talk about the marketing, where are the loopholes, where are the opportunities, what their mission and vision is, how they're creating a big brand presence in the UAE and globally as we hear on this live podcast. And he's been optimizing operations at Flynas and Bright, which is done previously. And he's been able to combine his strategic vision with operational execution to create market-leading sustainable businesses and foster high-impact partnerships. So, Uzair, welcome to the CEO Spotlight we're having here with Swapp, and we're going into all things marketing with Meraj and Sugira. Welcome to the show, and thank you for coming on. Marketing is all about storytelling. Dad, when we first started this business, what did you say to me?
I said, yes, we do a podcast.
Why?
Because I want to tell our story.
Why?
Because I know the story builds a legacy.
Builds a legacy. And that is exactly what we do here at ETS Rubasha Media. We market your story on social media so you could build a legacy for those who come after you, to build your business and your personal brand.
Yeah, follow us on our platform. Go on our website, etsrubashamedia.com.
This is about legacy, and it is about showing up on social media every single day, because if you don't show up, your competition will.
Thank you both, Meraj and Sugira, and really love the energy. So you've set the high tone for this podcast. Really love that. Thank you. So my name is Uzair. I'm currently the CEO of Swapp. Swapp is a car subscription platform. And the way we describe our platform is that we allow people to drive the car they want, when they want, until they want. So it's essentially an alternative to car ownership without basically being tied down to a specific car. Right? So you have the freedom of driving one car 1 month, another car the following month, changing the colors of cars, changing the type of cars depending on your budget, depending on your mood, depending on your needs.
Fantastic. Just to give a perspective to everyone, all the three of us are in different parts of the world right now. Sugira is talking to us from Sydney, Australia. Is in Dubai. I happen to be in India because I was traveling on work. And that's the fun of this whole thing that we are trying to do, getting people from all parts of the world. Thanks for that introduction, Uzair. You have an illustrious career behind you. You've done major stuff, and you have Kareem, the big name that we know as a part of the Dubai scheme of things. Is you've been associated with Kareem for a long time in Saudi. What exactly is your business model? If you want to give us a bit of a 101, Swap is doing several things at one point in time. So if you can just give us a 101, lay it out, unpack it in front of us in a way wherein common people can also understand, those who are here to, understand that.
Good question.
Fair enough. Yeah. So essentially, we are an aggregator of car leasing and car rental companies. So we go out to car leasing companies, car rental companies, aggregate supply from all of them onto one platform. This gives our users a high variety of cars from all sorts of categories, right? From budget categories all the way to very premium cars. All of this is done completely digitally, right? So we've aggregated the supply, added a digital layer on top of it, added a customer experience layer on top of it. So that's basically our value add. And then for the customers, the experience is the same across all of the different range of cars. So for them, they don't see the different suppliers that we work with. For them, they're just working with a Swap brand. We own the customer experience. We ensure that they get a consistent experience every single time they book a car with us.
Who's your competition? Taxis, car buying companies, where you go in retail and buy cars, or Mercedes, or all of these guys?
So the way we would like to position ourselves is that we are an alternate to car ownership, right? So whoever is selling a car is actually our competition, right? That's basically whereby we're focusing on. We're providing that flexibility, those benefits of car ownership without having those commitments to a particular car. So that's basically at a high level. That's our vision in terms of where we want to play. In terms of, if I look at the current environment, then I would classify the car rental companies and car leasing companies as our partners. And then there are some other platforms, digital platforms like us, who compete in our space.
Right. Very emotional question. What happens to those who build a connection with their cars? I know my father did when he bought his car. I know I did it when I bought my first car, and even my second and third. It becomes a part of your personality. It becomes your identity, right? You keep your camping stuff at the back. You keep your things whenever weekend you move out, all of that. So what happens to that in your scenario or in Swap's scenario?
This is very, very true, right? And the fact of the matter is that we have to adjust to these emotional stories of customers as well. We can't completely ignore them. So as a company which likes to innovate, we constantly take this feedback from customers. So this is the number one question that we ask people, that why are you buying a car instead of subscribing to one? And so for customers like yourself, we've created a product which is called lease to own. So over here, what we're doing is we're flipping the equation, right? Whereby when you are traditionally getting a car financed or buying a car, you're upfront investing cash in a depreciating asset. And over a period of time, in the case of financing, you would start owning the car. What we're doing is we're flipping the model, whereby you don't have to upfront give any cash. You subscribe to the car for, let's say, a period of 3 years or 5 years, pre-agreed with us. And then at the end of that period, if you're still emotionally attached to that car, you have the option of buying the car, right? So you don't outlay that cash upfront, but you outlay that cash only at the end of the journey. And at the end of that journey, in 3 years or 5 years time, like, things are evolving really fast these days. So if your choice changes at that point in time, you're free to walk away. You're either able to upgrade a car, swap a car as we like to call it, or walk away and do whatever you want. Maybe you want to now subscribe to a bike, right? Or a cycle, or whatever it is, right? So all of those options we make available, right? So, but I think the important point that you highlighted is very important, right? A company like ours needs to listen to the market. It can't be the other way around, right? And we need to sort of listen to what the market is saying and adopt and bring products to people like yourself as well, so that we're relevant.
That's amazing. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that make a business break or work. When you're listening to the customers, you're doing the right thing. And I'm glad that you guys have already figured out a product or a service which addresses this particular need, because car is an emotional association, I mean, for many people. Of course, I'm not talking about Gen Z or maybe millennials who are used to not owning things and who are used to moving around the world and stuff like that. People a little more senior. So amazing that you guys have already found the answer. Sugira, go over to you.
Yeah, I do have a question, because it's very interesting. Like Meraj, you said, so I live in Australia, but I've actually traveled here to Nairobi, Kenya. So when I came and I was like, you know what, I'm here, I have my income. I need a car. But then I was like, I don't have like, 30 grand or 40 grand. I gotta, go in and pay. Literally been thinking about this past few weeks. I was like, okay, cool. 30 grand, 40 grand to buy a car now. Like, even I gotta at least get that cash up front. It's not like Australia, where it's a bit different. So I said, I gotta go in and spend that amount of money to go and buy a car. What about if I could rent a car for, let's say if it's $500 a month, just because I have my bills, I have my, my salary, my income comes in. Okay, I can afford 500. And I literally thought of Swap because we had this type of conversation. So when it comes to marketing, but also with Swap now, how many of your customers are people, let's say like me, maybe it's people who are traveling to Dubai and who are going to be coming for 2 to 3 years, who are coming for a year, maybe how many of your customers are that person, and how has what's happened in Dubai with the recent war impacted what's been happening at Swap? So yeah, two-part question there. How many percentage of your customers are someone like me who's, okay, yes, I'm in Dubai for 12 months. I've come here for a work assignment for 2 years. I don't have that money to go buy a car. I can just rent a car, put it under the thing, but that's an asset because it's taking me to work, right? I need it. So the income is justifiable. So yeah, and then how has the war also now impacted that set of customers?
So the way we classify our customers, like, it's in four categories. One is what we call the jet setters. So these are people who are visiting Dubai for a short period of time, and so their rental needs are between 1 day to 30 days, right? That's a very, very different product. So we do have a product which accommodates for them, but that's a very I would say that it varies based on season, right? So in the traveling season, which is December and January, is the peak season over here, whereby the weather is really good and it's holidays all across the world. So a lot of people come to Dubai and visit during this time period. And so what we see is that up to 20% of our customers during this time period are these jet setters who are coming here for 1 to 30 days. The second set of customers, which is like yourself, Sugira, this is your profile set, which is what we call project consultants, right? So there are people like yourself who keep on traveling, who keep on moving, who've got projects in Dubai, who've got projects in the US, who've got projects in Sydney, who've got projects in Africa. And so these people would come in for a project to Dubai. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense to buy a car for those 3 months that you're there, right? So then our product fits in really well. They come in, subscribe. And once again, this is whereby we provide a lot more flexibility, right? So if you subscribe a car for 2 months and 2 days, we only charge you for the 2 months and 2 days that you've used the car, right? We refund back any additional days that you've not used, right? So that gives the customer a peace of mind that they can extend the booking, they can reduce the booking based on their needs, right? Because travel plans change all across as well. And so one of the key things we see in this segment is that 40% of our new bookings are repeat customers. So customers like yourself come to Dubai, use us, and then go back and then come back and use us again. So that's the second set of customers. Third set of customers is what we call seasonal settlers. So there are certain professions in Dubai, and there are certain businessmen who like to base themselves in Dubai for tax purposes, right? So they want to ensure that their tax residency is, of course, everyone knows that Dubai is tax free. So if you spend more than 6 months here and your tax residency status in UAE, then you don't get any taxed across the world, right? So from that perspective, a lot of people are living here 6 months and then 6 months somewhere else. So those people, naturally, we are a really, really good fit for them. Once again, no point of having a depreciating asset sit in your garage or in your parking or whatever. There are certain professions I talked about, for example, teachers, right? So most of the teachers in Dubai are expats, and their contracts are set whereby they stay here for 9 months, and then during the summer vacations, they are actually sent back home, paid flight back home from their employers, right? Like which are schools. So for those 3 months, they're not here, right? Once again, it doesn't make any sense to have a depreciating asset sitting in your garage. So these people are really, really good customers for us as well, right? So third segment was seasonal settlers. And then the final one is the flexible expats, right? So what do I mean by flexible expats? There are lots of customers who have specific use cases that they need to cater to, right? So it might be picking and dropping kids from school. It might be dropping their kids to classes. It might be just to get to the office, right? So a lot of customers for their second car, right? First car, Miraj, it's an emotional need. So a lot of people sort of go for that emotional need and ensure that they have at least one asset. But then for the second car, right, they don't want to be having a second asset which is also going to be depreciating. And in that case, this allows them the flexibility that when they don't need the car, they can return it back to us. And once they need the car, they can just ask us and we will deliver the car back to them. So these are basically the four broad categories of our customers.
That's amazing that you've already done the personas and their needs, their goals, their barriers, their emotional insights and stuff like that. Now, which is your biggest chunk? That would be the next question. Secondly, the second question would be how do you address these different personas from the marketing, messaging, and communication perspective? What are the different tools you use and how do you go about it?
Fair point, right? So let me answer that, right? So the biggest segment is the project consultants, right? These are people who are I would say, the most valuable to us, right? Like they are the biggest segment of the market, and they're very loyal customers, right? So it's essentially very important for us to give a really good experience to them. A lot of them are word of mouth customers, right? So when you give one customer a really good experience, then they would go and talk to their friends, and that would sort of create that chain, right? Now, obviously, that's not the only method, but like for this specific set of customer segment, it's really important to ensure that we deliver a consistent experience every single time so that they bring in more customers to us, and then that basically flywheel goes on. For the tourists, obviously, it's more of a SEO based strategy, right? Like for them, it's a short term use. So as long as your SEO strategy is right, you've optimized for people to land and find you, you would be able to win that segment. In terms of flexible expats, this is probably the hardest one to crack, because these people are habits of creature, right? And this is basically like a segment who are set in their ways and their habits. For them, it's more about selling them the value proposition in terms of like it needs to sort of not only be a emotional appeal, but also the logic needs to make sense, right? So the numbers need to work for them, right? What does it mean? How do the numbers rank up in terms of buying a car versus subscribing to a car, right? And that math needs to be there for them, very, very clear. So that's the third segment. For seasonal settlers, the messaging would be slightly different. It would be more about convenience. It would be more about sort of showing them that those 3 months that they're not using the car, what's happening to the car, utilizing the parking, and sort of like earning some money by leasing out that parking space. So all of these things come into play, whereby you need to sort of be slightly creative in terms of the marketing messages and how you're going to address them, how you're going to find them. I just realized I forgot the second part of your question, Sugira, which you asked earlier, which was on the impact of the regional conflict and what has happened in Dubai, right? So naturally, this is a segment whereby we are dependent on the movement of people in and around the city, both people coming in from outside and also within the city, people moving around, right? So of course, during the war, people were and we were also prioritizing safety of everyone. And so at that point in time, we did see movement really slow down. So a lot less people coming back, and we did see like numbers go during the at the peak of its conflict. We saw like almost a 50% drop in our numbers, right, from what they used to be. But the good thing is that I think the way this crisis was handled by the UAE government was exceptional, right? Like in terms of communication, in terms of transparency, in terms of gaining trust of people. So when the ceasefire was accomplished, because of that trust that the UAE government had built, people came back very, very quickly, right? So I would not say that things have gone back to where they were, because obviously the tourist segment is completely missing right now. Flights and all, I think they're still being cautious to ensure that these things are not easy to change, right? So they don't want to be in a situation whereby you're going back and forth, and when you're bringing in people from other countries, right, like you're more concerned about their safety, right? They're the guests over here, so they're prioritizing the safety. And so until those decisions are finalized, I don't think you would see that number coming back. Probably say that we're back to 80-90% of where things were before the war. So yeah, once again, like I think the approach that we took, and I think we're glad that we took this approach, was that we had trust in the leadership that they would take actions to ensure the safety of the residents of this country, and also in terms of having longer term economic policies whereby we would come out of this. And we've seen this, like it's not just a matter of talk, it's also a matter of belief, right? Like UAE has gone through the financial crisis in 2008, which was of course quite heavily impacted in this region, and then basically COVID, like they came back, and every time some of this crises have hit the country, it has been very painful, but it has always bounced back much, much better than what it was even before the crisis, right? So from our perspective, we continued on with our investments. So like, let the government do what they're really good at, and we will continue to. We've not, for example, have any redundancies in the company because of this regional conflict. We've continued, and actually we've doubled down in terms of our investments, in terms of ensuring that we don't lose the pathway, and we don't miss the opportunity, because it's going to be the companies which double down their investments right now when the crisis is completely over and we come out of that crisis. The companies which have invested during this crisis would be the ones which come out significantly stronger after this crisis.
Well, that's amazing. And I will be honest to say that I've been a part and immediately and firsthand experienced and involved with the way the leadership has been handling the entire situation, because I was there briefly to drop my kid and wife back to Dubai, and they're back in school. The schools are running and so on and so forth. And I came back because I've been traveling and stuff. So yeah, you're right. And if you guys are, that's the thing. If you have faith in the leadership, business stays stable, or at least you make all the efforts to put it in the right direction. But the moment you start questioning, how will I proceed up after 1 month, that's when all the negativities start creeping in. And that's the great thing about Dubai, and perfectly articulated. I have a question which is an interesting question, because I've been doing some research about you and your background, and not stalking, but some research, I would call it. You come from a family business background, if I'm not wrong. You started attending to the business parts of the world thanks to your parents and uncles and aunts, and you got into it very early on. And one of the themes or minor themes of this season is about the family business and how they handle the challenges and grow the business and expand the business, so on and so forth. My question to you is a different one, because you did not remain there. You moved out, you studied, and you went on to do things in Australia, Saudi, and back now in Dubai. What part of that has stayed with you and helps you even today in day-to-day work, as well as marketing part of the work?
Very good, right? Like, I think I would say, I would sum it up in one sentence, right? Like, any person who is associated with a business family, one thing that they see is uncertainty, right? Because no business goes in a straight line. It goes up, it goes down, it goes better, it goes worse. Like anyone who's managing a business knows that they're fighting multiple fires at the same time, right? Sometimes things are completely out of your control. Like right now, for example, like with this regional conflict, there are times when you make mistakes as well, right? Like, so there are times when you are to blame yourself, you're to blame others. It's like crazy, right? So one thing which you learn is that uncertainty is part of life, right? And so growing up in this environment, right, it's not a very stable environment, right? You are used to seeing the highs and the lows of life, right? And so because of that, I think you are prepared for challenges which the business world throws at you much better than people who've had a very, very stable life, right? So the academic world is very structured, less chaotic, and like in theory everything looks very simple, right? If you're studying cases in MBA, right, like you only read about the successful stories, obviously you don't read about the failures. And like it's like, oh yeah, this is a theory, if you apply the five Porter's forces and to study the market and you launch it, like things would look perfect. But that's not the reality, right? Like, and I sort of shared this on the previous podcast as well, right? Like a lot of the times things in real world, you think about them a lot, you do the best planning and you launch your thing and it completely fails. And then there are other things which seem that not well thought out. You go out to the market and suddenly for some reason which you can't explain, they go like through the roof, right? Like they just do so well. And so that, I think, like, I don't have any other word to explain it but luck. And being part of these business families, these are the conversations like that you have on a day-to-day basis, right? So you have this I would say ability to navigate through challenges much more, and you're a lot more I would say aware of managing your emotions through high and low times and remaining humble as well, right? I think this is probably like you're a bit more grounded. Don't take success to your brain and failure to your heart, right? Like that's basically like one of the things which you have to live through to survive, right? That's a coping mechanism that you need to develop, otherwise you would not be able to survive.
Right. Let's say you were prepared for the war. So I'm just putting it in a very different manner just to lighten up things, but nobody's prepared for the war and nobody's prepared for such things. Now, let's get down to the major chunk of this whole webinar podcast. See, as a CEO, you have to look into every aspect of the business. And at some point in time, you will have to, deep dive into the marketing part of it. And you briefly touched upon how you use different platforms and tools to address different personas or cohorts. What are the 4 or 5 big marketing challenges that you're facing currently with your brand, vis-a-vis competition, vis-a-vis the market, vis-a-vis the market that you want to expand into, which is your the other big ambition? So yeah.
So the first biggest challenge right now is that it's becoming very, very competitive, right? And so all of us are competing for the same keywords. So I think like this is somehow someone put it as that in this world of startups, right? It's like the only winners are these media players, right? Because everyone is using them regardless what. So cost of acquisition is going up every day, right? Like, and if I compare it to 4 years ago, it is significantly higher, right? Significantly higher. At the same time, your cost pressures are there as well, right? And customers are becoming a lot more knowledgeable. It's a lot easy to compare things now, and with this AI and all, right? Like things are completely being disrupted all the time. So expectations are really high. So the first challenge in marketing is that how do you differentiate yourself in a very, very competitive space, and how do you maintain your CACs to a level which would be sustainable, right? I would not say that keep them low, because the reality is that it won't, right? Like it's just like a matter of competition, right? That things would keep on increasing. So you would just need to figure out that how do you keep yourself abreast with this, and how do you, I mean, this is really important as well in marketing world, right? How do you adapt to the new realities? You cannot sort of live in the past that, oh yeah, when I used to operate, the CAC was only $10. Now 4 years later it's $50, and I should still operate with a mindset of, oh, when CAC was $10, right? So there are certain things you can control. There are certain things you can't control. So this is the number one thing, right? Like that competitiveness of digital media, and it's becoming significantly more expensive, right? So your CAC is constantly going up. That's the real problem. Number two, I think you're competing for people's time now, right? Like with this Instagram Reels and YouTube Reels and this short world, like what do they call it? Doom scrolling, right? Like you don't have a lot of attention of people, right? Like, so your messaging needs to really stand out.
That's
So the way you
largely that's largely people like Sugira and from his generation. That's what they're doing.
So yeah, we have to compete for that attention, right? I think that's becoming really, really challenging. That how do you people lose attention immediately, right? Like within 2 seconds or so, if your message does not catch your attention, then that's it, you've lost them, right? So and the algorithms are so smart, right? Like if Sujira or whoever is scrolling, they scroll past our ad twice, they're not going to show the ad again to them, right? You're gone, right? So it's a very high cost first to get to Sujira or like other people like him. But then most importantly, if Sujira does not pay attention, then you've lost him for a long time. So those algorithms are really smart. So that's the second thing, which is obviously a lot more hard, right? And then the third thing I would probably say, I think there is an aspect of marketing. It's like customer expectations are at an all-time high. And in Dubai, people are spoiled. It's a beautiful country. People have the infrastructure over here is amazing. And so the expectations that people have are really, really high, right? And so if you don't meet those expectations, then there is a disappointment, right? So you have to deliver a high promise, and then you have to somehow meet that delivery of high promise, right? Otherwise, once again, you like people would not give you many chances over here, right? Like, so you have to sort of like, so I would say I would classify these three things, right? Like number one, how do you ensure that your CAC remains sustainable? Number two, how do you ensure that your messaging is standing out in the market so that you're grabbing attention? And number three is that how do you deliver on the promise that the customer is expecting, like from a marketing perspective?
Right. So, which brings me to the next question, and I would ask Sujira to also expand it a bit. The second point, your messaging and what you want to be perceived as in this whole game of A, Dubai and its plethora of brands, and B, the brands in the field of, let's say, automobiles and cars, right? I mean, you're competing against any car that I would like to buy vis-a-vis, I mean, if I do want, I go for Swap. So what does your brand stand for today in Dubai? What do you want it to stand for in the next 3 to 5 years? And what are the gaps and how are you fulfilling it? And Sujira, please go ahead and expand the same on if you have certain questions on that.
So from our perspective, the biggest point for us is transparency, right? Like how do we create transparency? Like this is basically one of the big pain points that we learned, that one of the things that we want to differentiate ourselves is that how do we create that transparency that whenever a customer is getting an invoice, they know what this invoice is. One of the and when I sort of say this, right, like there are rental charges, which obviously it's very, very visible for everyone, right? That when you're subscribing to a car upfront, you would pay a fee for the car subscription. But then there are lots of extras, like how much do you pay for additional driver? How much do you pay for completely comprehensive insurance, whereby you don't have to pay any excess insurance charges and all? What happens in the case of an accident? How do we get these police reports and all? Because in Dubai, you have to pay for these police reports if it's your fault. What happens in the case of fines? It's a very safe city, and as a result of that, there are lots of speeding cameras. So a lot of people who are new to Dubai don't realize this. So how do we communicate that? Tolls, right? Like, so there are tolls all around the city. So so this is the first thing, that how do we create transparency around all of these charges, whether it's subscription charges, whether it's all of these extras, and we provide a way of making that visible to the customers instantly. Right, so that's one part of the brand promise. Now, these are like things which are easier to say rather than implement them, right? Like it's an age-old problem, so we're trying to solve that as well. Number two that we want to solve for is that we stand for is flexibility. So now what does that mean? So once again, there are lots of limitations in it as well, right? So if we have showcased a price to a customer based on a certain commitment, right? So the customer comes to us and says that I want this car for 9 months and I'm committing to it, right? And based on that, we give them a price. Now what happens, but we also know that plans can change, right? What happens after 3 months if, like circumstances change and now the customer wants to get out of that contract, right? how do we ensure that we are fair to the customer, we're fair to our company, and we're fair to our supplier, right? Because at the end of the day, we're sourcing the car from the supplier, and the prices we're getting are based on certain commitments, right? So designing that policy in a way whereby we're remaining fair to the customer, remaining fair to ourselves. And when I say remaining fair to ourselves, because obviously, if you're not sustainable as a company, then from my perspective, I would like to give out everything for free, be extremely flexible, but then we would not be sustainable as a business, and we would have to shut down shop, right? Like, so that's the second thing. We have to be fair to ourselves, and then we have to be fair to our suppliers as well. Like constantly harass them and ask them for things which were outside the contract. Obviously, our trust would be eroded, and they might not be wanting to work with us, right? So those are aspects of flexibility that we want to stand for. And the third thing is in terms of customer experiences, right? Like how do we keep on building on that? And this is something which keeps on evolving, right? And we need to continuously evolve as well. We don't know how the world will change, right? Like things are changing so fast. AI, right? Like how would it be implemented in our scenarios, right? Like what would people expect from us? We know for a fact that no one likes to get a fine in Dubai, right? Like what can we do from an AI perspective? Can we sort of like have telematics data in our cars which promptly forces the customer to decelerate, right? Like we can potentially enforce such controls, right? Like, but then what would be the cost of that? What would be the privacy concerns? All of these decisions that we have to make, right? Like, so thinking about those customer experiences which stay relevant, right? Like we talked about this lease to own concept, right? Like this came out from this customer experience journey that we did, right? That, okay, this is a pain point for customers. How do we flip on that? So these are the three things I would say we stand for, and all of these three things are continuously evolving.
Do you like it to
Powerful.
be? Yeah, it is. It is. Go ahead, Sugira. Go ahead. You have something to say.
I actually had a question for Meraj. So we see how powerful of a business model this is. How does Swap become the McDonald's of the industry? How do they become, the number one in the industry? I know we touched a little bit on ads, which is very, very interesting what we're seeing in the advertisement space. And now you only have 3 seconds to capture people's attention. Literally. It's interesting, my side, I was never someone who was into marketing. I was just a creator. So as a creator, I learned, okay, how do I capture people's attention? That's our job as a creator. But when you put that in the business, that talent in ads is everything, because like we said, you have 3 seconds to capture someone's attention, but it works. And especially, when you're using things like Meta, which I think is huge for you guys. So Miraj, my question is, how does Swap become the McDonald's? How does Swap become, when I walk into Dubai and I think of, hey, I need a car, there's no one else I think of but Swap. The same way, the only reason when I came to Kenya and I was like, man, I need a car. The only reason I thought of Swap was because I had a conversation with Uza. So that's why his solution, which I had a conversation with him like 8-9 months ago, however long, but I'm here and I'm like, man, imagine and then I'm looking at car rentals here and there's nothing as good as that. So I'm like, oh, that's what Uza showed me with Swap. Imagine if something was like that here. So that's my question to you, Miraj, and then I'll have Uza add on top of that in terms of being, a marketing solution, which is our specialty. How do they become the biggest guys in the industry?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
So the simplest answer to your question would be Uzair will have to increase his marketing budget by 10 times and be seen all across Dubai, everywhere. But that doesn't happen in the real world, right? So the next question is, and you premeditated my thoughts. I mean, actually, I was thinking the same thing. Right now in Dubai, and I've lived enough to see, the first thing that comes to your mind when you're taxiing is Kareem, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. In fact, Kareem today wants to become much more than taxi, and they're struggling because they're so very well identified just as the taxi guys. They want to become a super app, I know the guys, they're working hard at it, and somewhere they are successful. So how do we make, when the way Google happened, let's Google it, how do we get the let's swap it to happen, right? That's what it is that I think Uzair and his team would be trying to achieve, and having an alternative in the head when it comes to, and that alternative is the best alternative. So I think it will come from storytelling, the right storytelling, which needs to be done not in the old format, which is a beautiful 30-second, 1-minute TVC and stuff, which will also be needed at some point in time, but to make quick gains, you need to have a quick story pegs which are formulated or targeted to the biggest chunk, which are your personas. If you talk about the guys who are jet setters or who are the flexible, to get them to get the attention in the quickest possible time. So build 4 or 5 or 6 different storylines depending on the different personas and their needs, and cater to them so that it immediately hits me. If I have hit the Dubai airport and I go on the free Wi-Fi, the first thing I should start seeing is Swap, man. As simple as that. How do we achieve that? And everyone does that because Dubai airport Wi-Fi is free, like any international good airports. So, I mean, those touch points, the right personas that you want to catch, the messaging, quick 3 seconds, 5 seconds, line, good, crazy visuals. Identity becomes a big part of it. Last time, I think you were mentioning that you guys are working on refreshing the identity and stuff. And I think that also will play a very big role in how you are perceived. Dubai is a flash oriented market. Dubai, everything needs to be big. Dubai, you need to be on hoarding. Even if the world is on the mobile, you need to be on the hoarding. And Uzair, look at his smile. He knows it. I know. I mean, but you have to be on Sheikh Zayed Road. I mean, you've seen Sheikh Zayed Road and then you are a brand. So all of these things, taxi backs, I mean, how do you do some ambush marketings in other vehicles which are moving and you are also vehicles? Clever lines, things like that will do the job. So there are ways in which, and which brings me to a question, and I'll then get to Zaire to answer your question, is that how are you guys currently doing it? Do you guys have an in-house team? Are you guys engaging with an agency? Is there a creative team or creative director? Because that also, the storytelling comes from there, what the brand stands for and how you want to expand it. What is your just do it? What is your philosophy? Like Nike's beautiful philosophy is, if you have a body, you're an athlete. So suddenly the entire world is their TG, as opposed to an Adidas who talked only to sports loving people, and those are only 10% of the world. But when you say,
Yeah.
if you have a body, you're an athlete, and that's the philosophy of Nike, suddenly you are everyone's brand. So
The whole market.
exactly. So is there anyone working on it? All of those works, fundamental storytelling, brand work, positionings, vision, mission, all of that, I'm sure is in place. But that's brings me to that question: how is it happening currently, and how you want to change it, or if you have an idea to change it?
So yeah, this is an interesting thing, right? Like I can give you the short answer or the long answer. The long answer is we've experimented a lot with this, right? Like
Right.
yeah.
Guessed as much.
So, yeah. So we started off with an in-house team. It wasn't yielding the right results. We
Yeah.
moved an external agency, didn't yield the right results. We moved it back in-house, realized that we don't have the right expertise. We tried like a bit of a blend, tried this whereby we did our identity revamp, right? Like, so that was a big project that we actually took on with the help of an external agency. I think we could not have done it in-house, so good decision on that part. Then I think we decided that, okay, this has worked so well, so let's try and go back to external agencies and all. And we realized that we're not at a stage whereby we can rely on external agencies.
Right.
I think we need to move it back in house. So at this stage, like for the past, I think 6 to 9 months, we've moved it back in house. And now we have an in-house team with creative director, performance marketing director, designers,
Right.
and all in, and sort of like working on it at this stage. I think like this is it's once again, as I said, like everything is a journey, right? It's not a smooth sailing. You sort of go through this curve and suddenly you find everything working. So at this point in time, I think our realization was that it's really important for us to own all of this and understand and make the mistakes ourselves, right? Because we are really, really vested in terms of like making ourselves succeed. So let's try and do it ourselves to some extent. And then we will get external help for specific parts and have like a very, very clear, focused mandate in terms of what needs to be done by the external agency to help and how would it fit the overall strategy. And so I think this is whereby we're at right now, right? Like in terms of I think the right strategy would be to have a internal focus team that extends themselves by hiring specific mandates based on the need of the day.
Right. No, yeah. And it also is a question of budget. I mean, outside agencies, they cost more. Their interest will be in different other clients as well. It also always is a function of how much you're paying them, the kind of work that you'll get out of them, and so on and so forth. So it's always, so the way I've seen it, and I'm just putting it as a solution, I don't know whether you have touched that as a solution, is the way I have been handling, and I've been doing it, we've been doing it to an extent, is that you do the basics of or the fundamentals of the brand, which is the entire storytelling, with some expert who has done it over the years with different brands and comes with that, and then the execution part of that whole thing can go in-house, because your storytelling, your brand positioning, what the brand stands for, will remain for the next 5-8 years. I mean, you don't want to play around with it too much, right? I mean, the best brands don't do that. Gap tried to change its logo. 20 days they had to come back because they face so much of flack across the world. So
Which
it's
was
not something.
it was Jaguar who tried to change their logo right now.
Exactly. Recently. Exactly.
Oh, they
So,
did. Jaguar
yeah, and it faced a lot of flack, and
logo to what? Like a different animal? Isn't it like a tiger or something?
It's a Jaguar, right? Like so,
Oh,
and then
it's
they
it's a
tried to,
Jaguar.
yeah. So they tried to change that, play with it. it wasn't appreciated. It wasn't taken.
It was like Gap did it. Gap had to come back to the old logo. Zara did it. It has been a success with its criticism around it. I mean, experts should come and do the brand part of it. Give the package. You guys run with it. You guys hire 4 or 5 people, and then that's how it actually really kind of works best. Until you have the budget and you become so big that you need somebody from outside. That's the way it essentially. But no, amazing. What are your expansion plans? I mean, you talked about, and that again boils down to what you stand for, because you need to be known. Like McDonald's is McDonald's everywhere, or Nike is Nike everywhere. So how are you going about the expansion plans? And if I can tail that, what are the marketing opportunities that you see there?
So in terms of expansion plans, there are two dimensions that we look at, right? One is basically in terms of the services we offer. So what other services we can offer, and so go deeper into this market, UAE, and then what are opportunities that we can take internationally. Like, so those are the two questions that we ask ourselves. At this stage, I think we are more focused in terms of expanding within the service levels, right? So adding more services to our product and going a lot more deeper into UAE, because we feel that it's far from saturation right now. There's a lot of opportunity. There are plans of going international expansion as well. Of course, with this regional conflict, things have slightly slowed down and plans have been extended slightly. So I think we are in a similar boat as a lot of other businesses. This is a time when people are uh, consolidating, taking a step back, sort of thinking in terms of like what's the right strategy, and we're in the same boat as that. Yeah, I think at this stage, expansion is on the cards, but we are more focused on adding service lines or in the immediate term, right? Like, so I'd say in the next 3 to 6 months, we would want to add a couple of more service lines into our product within UAE, and then probably post that start looking at international expansion as well.
So that's fantastic. Steve Jobs used to say, when there is a storm, you better work on your nets and make them stronger. And, because you cannot go out to the sea. So you sharpen your tools, you fix your nets and stuff like that. So fair enough. Yeah. I mean, totally amazing. What are your tips to people who want to run a successful business anywhere, especially in Middle East?
Great question.
Great question, right? Yeah. So in terms of like anywhere, I would probably say that whatever you would plan in terms of PowerPoint slides in Excel, I've never seen it hold true, right? So if you hold true to your PowerPoint and your Excel, then I would come and personally shake your hand, because you're probably the first person who would have done that. So I would say be prepared for deviating away from the plans that you've set. I don't think anything works like it does in PowerPoint and Excel. So that's the general advice. And then in Middle East, I would say that focus.
You've taken away all the business of the big four, KPMG, all those guys you've just struck them with a big blow with one statement, and I love it.
I think I was part of KPMG, right? Like, I think their job is to validate the CEO's thinking.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like, so I think that probably is the best way of describing it.
Yeah.
But anyways, coming back to the second point, right? Like, which is in the Middle East, what to do. I think this is a market which is completely based on relationships, right? Like, so leverage your relationships, build those relationships. If you don't have that, talk to people. There are some nuances that you need to get used to over here, right? Like, in terms of things, the way things work, and that would need to be accounted for, right? So yeah, I think in the Middle East, really work on the relationships, really try to understand what the problem statements here are, and especially for new businesses setting up, I think some of the things are done differently. So you just need to sort of understand and how it happens. For example, like in UAE specifically, there are lots of different free zones. So one of the key decisions is that, do you establish your company in mainland? Do you establish your company in free zone? And if in free zone, what free zone? And these are not easily reversible decisions. So once you have taken a path on a particular free zone, then you cannot just tomorrow decide, oh yeah, you know what, now I'm going to go in this free zone. There is an administrative cost to doing all of that, right? So that research needs to be done properly. It's not an easily reversible decision. So get advice from tax consultants, from I think there are business consultants, and most importantly, from your network, right? Like, I think that's basically really, really important over here.
Powerful stuff. Guys, I want to play a game that we have here with Marketing with Meraj and Sugira, where I will give a word, a marketing word, and we'll have Meraj and Uza. You take turns, who goes first, who goes next. And then whatever word comes in your mind, you say it, and then you can explain that, okay? Okay, so first word, marketing. When you hear the word marketing, what comes to your mind? One word. Let's start with Uza.
Brand story.
Explain.
So to me, marketing is backing your brand story, right? Like, what are the stories and how you're going to communicate it to customers.
Love it. Maraj?
Attracting people to the relevant stuff. I'm using 3 or 4 words. I think attraction is the big thing. If you want to take one word, it's attraction. It's the same game I feel when you're trying to court a woman to either sleep with her or spend some time with her or make her your wife. So marketing is about making her your wife because you want to build a complete long relationship. It's not just one night or just a fling. So that attraction becomes, and it's not easy to do this for the rest of your life.
Awesome. CMO.
Trusted advisor.
Explain. I like that.
Yeah. So CMO needs to be the trusted advisor to, I would say, not only to the CEO, but to the rest of the organization, to the rest of the leadership team, to the external stakeholders, and to the customers, right? So that's, I think, like the key role of the CMO.
I would add the word somebody who knows money also, who can spend the money in the right way to get the right results. I think that's something which most CMOs forget. They think it's all about ideas, creativity, execution. But at the end of it, you've taken somebody's X dollar or whatever, you've got to give 5X in return or 3X in return. I think, and that mindset is very important to be a CMO, is what I think.
That's a very, very good point. I like that. Next word, reoccurring revenue. What comes to your mind?
Subscription, I would also say that. Any business today is all about subscription. If you're paying Netflix, you're paying Amazon, you're paying everyone Spotify, all my money is going in. Apart from my son's school education, all my money is going in subscription, man. So very well put.
Next one, content creation.
Creativity. So I guess content creation for the sake of it would not help. Content creation with creativity is what would create impact.
Content creation with creativity creates impact.
Creativity which grabs attention immediately. I'm just adding things to what Uzair is saying. I'm just finding the easy way. But yeah, you cannot take away creativity from content. Otherwise, it's not content. I mean, it's just information. And information will not cut through. Information has to be packaged in a way that it looks good and it compels you. Like, for example, car example, Avis versus Hertz. Everyone knows this from the case study. The second one said, we try harder because we are number two. Now, that's the real creativity, right? Underdogs will always try hard, right? And that was the campaign which Bill Bernbach came up with way back in the 60s for Avis, right? So it was Avis versus Hertz. So yeah, go ahead, Sugira. We are liking this game, I think.
Attention.
It's interesting. Doom scrolling. That's the word that comes to my mind, which is probably lack of attention these days, right? Like it's just so easy to get into your phones and just get lost.
I'll just quickly add on that. When we talk about those, one day I was on the train in Australia and, I just observed things and I saw someone just going, but I wanted to observe him closely. And I said, in my mind, my creative mind said, what makes him stop? Because he was doing this, but then sometimes he stops on one video. So what's the difference between him going and then the one video that he stops upon, so then I'm looking, and then that's what attention is. How can we make our product where they stop on us? Whether that's from a B2C, B2B, whatever, because everyone doom scrolls in some capacity. How do you create, and even seeing in the UGC space, when we create ads for people, it's when we're creating an ad for a company, it's how do we make them stop within the first 3 seconds? They don't even realize it's an advertisement. It's an advertisement, but they don't realize it because it hooks them. I think the attention and kind of what you said, I just wanted to add on top of that. Anyway, because it was in my mind. Meraj, what would you say?
It's the new currency. I mean, it's the only currency today. I mean, it's the only currency, to be honest.
Yeah.
I have a question for Uzair. What does he do when he's not working? What is the lighter side, easier side of Uzair, or non-serious side of Uzair?
I try to pick up a new hobby, right? Like from time to time. These days I'm trying to ride a bike, right? Like a motorbike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
That side as well. But it keeps on changing. These days it's this.
What I'm trying to do, and I also keep trying to do it, and now we are on the lighter side, I am back to reading the script Urdu and writing it. I learned it a bit as a kid and I stopped it for the last 25 years. Now I'm back to reading Urdu and writing. Urdu is a script, by the way, Sugira. The Arabic is also the same script, but reading it is kind of a job. Writing it is a bigger job. So I'm doing it these days. Just FYI. I think we've... yeah. How about you? Do you do that? Yeah.
I haven't in ages, right? I don't know when was the last time. Probably like back in school or something.
Same. I mean, school, my father used to teach me. It was not there in the school curriculum, but I thought I'll get back to it. Right. Amazing. I mean, what a conversation. Yeah. Very enriching. Amazing. Very, very good. I mean, insightful, and I enjoyed it completely. I learned a lot from Uzair and Sugira as always.
Yes, same here. I think good conversation, very natural flow. So I think that really helped.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Sugira.
Okay, guys.
Anything anything to add to this from your side?
Yeah, like I think it was a fantastic conversation, and I think so many people can get value out of it. For the CEOs who look up to Uzair, or who maybe even have a similar business model, or maybe even who are potential competitors, maybe the ones who are selling the cars. Who knows, right? Like, could be inspiration to anyone, right? We welcome anyone here. So I think great inspiration for people who are wanting to run large businesses like the way Uzair is doing with Swap. There's a lot of people in terms of the marketing side, coming into this and saying how, like I said at the beginning of this, marketing is life, right? It influences decisions. And if you can get marketing right in your business, you change the game.
Yeah.
You really do. If you get marketing right in your business, it changes the game, because that attention is everything. You look at everything around us has been influenced by marketing. Even religion, there is marketing in religion. So when people see that, it's really powerful what this conversation does, and the weight of this conversation in the future. So I want to thank both Uzair and Meraj, and of course, for coming on here and spending time. And we look forward to see where Swap goes, and we look forward to see where this podcast goes. And yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, guys. And see you guys soon. All the best. Cheers. Bye.
Hey, what's wrong? Bro, I'm stressed out. I'm running my business. I've got to serve my customers, but I need more customers coming in. I can't keep relying on word of mouth. Why don't you just use ETS Rabasha Media? Who? Well, with AI now, what they do is they go in, get your perfect clients, bring them in front of you. So all I've got to do is run my business, and he brings me opportunities. Think about it. You speak to 3,000 of your ideal customers, convert 1% of that 3,000. That's 30 people. 30 people in a room with you. Can you convert that? Of course I'll close them. I'm good at what I do. I just don't have time to be going and looking for my perfect client. Focus on what you love doing and let them bring you customers. When you win, they win. Commission, ching. Sugira Rabasha, huh? Yeah, Sugira Rabasha. Go and Google them, man. Come on, take it to the bank.
If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to click here, and I'm sure you're going to love that one.